Hello metalheads and welcome to Metal and Rock Zone. Today we're gonna do a review of KK Priest's second album, The Sinner Rides Again. Came out yesterday, 29th of September 2023. And I want to talk a little bit about the background of the band, my expectations to this album, the reality that I experienced of listening to this album, discuss a little bit KK and Tim Ripper Owens, the guitar player and the singer, if they have a chip on their shoulder because of their past with Judas Priest. Highlight some tracks that I like, and then give my verdict and rating. Before we start, just a reminder of our social media. That's at Metal and Rock Zone on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We share different stuff than here, album facts and shorter videos and stuff like that you might not see here on the channel. So check us out there. And the playlist, the weekly new metal and rock music that comes out every week on Spotify that we make for you, so you never miss a thing. First comment in this video, you will find a link to that playlist. And there's a lot of stuff that you know, but also a bunch of stuff that you never heard about. This week's playlist is over 100 new songs that came out last week alone. KK Priest, a little bit about the background of the band. Obviously, by the name, it's KK Downing. He used to be in Judas Priest. He was one of the founding members, kind of, because, Judas Priest was very kind of fluid in the beginning. There were kind of two bands merging, but he came in pretty early. And he was with them until 2011, and he was one of the main songwriters. So a lot of the stuff that by Judas Priest can be, it's partly his work, and he's definitely one of the kind of the inventors of the genre. Like without guys like him, we probably wouldn't have traditional heavy metal as it is. I mean, he's one of the builders of this genre. Now, Tim Ripper Owens, he came into Judas Priest in '96 when Rob Halford left. I mean, he left actually in '92. They took a four years break, and then Tim Ripper Owens came in. They made two albums with him, one called Juggulator and another one called Demolition. And then Rob Halford wanted to come back, and then Tim had to leave. Must have been really, really hard for him. And now these guys have kind of joined hands. They made an album in 2021 called Sermons of the Sinner, and now this one called The Sinner Rides Again, and there's a lot of sinners, obviously, in their lives. So the album is 9 songs, about 40 minutes long, and my expectations were actually quite high, because, I mean, these are both great guys. KK Downing, just a legend, and he's an institution in the industry. He's very visible, very vocal. I mean, obviously, a lot of his conversations about his past with Judas Priest and his disagreements with him and whatever that is. And then Tim Ripper Owens, for me, is kind of one of the better kind of screamers out there. I mean, he's a great singer. So it's almost kind of, for me, like a supergroup. No disrespect to the other members of the band, they're also great. But it's almost like a supergroup with those two guys coming together. So the expectations are kind of naturally very, very high. But I'm also aware that there is some history here, and I found immediately the first thing that I thought about when I saw this band or heard about this band the first time was the name. I mean, KK's Priest, Judas Priest. And I found that a little bit strange. Why don't you kind of distance yourself somehow a little bit more? KK is not very happy with Priest. I mean, there was this discussion around, I think it was last year, that he played with them a one-off gig in this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and then he was asked afterwards if he wanted to be in the band, and he said, well, I offered in 2018 to come into the band, but they refused me, and I can't see why they did that. Why does Rob Halford have the right to be in this band? He left, I brought him back in. So, there is some bad blood here, I don't know. And with Tim Ripper, I feel like his story with the band is somehow being airbrushed away somehow. And I don't know why, because these two albums, for example, that he made, Juggulator and Demolition, you can't find them, for example, on digital platforms, streaming platforms. And I know that the label went bankrupt, but you can buy these kind of rights out of bankruptcy and put them up there. And if Judas Priest wanted to do that, I'm sure they could. And I don't know, so I don't know if it's a contractual thing, if Rob Halford's ego, he didn't want to have albums with Judas Priest out there with someone else singing. But so it's strange. I mean, obviously those two albums are not necessarily albums that maybe the band is super proud of. I mean, one of them was more kind of thrash metal, the other one is more like nu metal, and that was never really a great thing when the traditional metal bands tried to do nu metal. So he even said, Tim Ripper said in 2008, and he would like to re-record these albums because he feels that they're trying to kind of erase his history with the band. And that's probably not a nice feeling, but it's also not necessarily the right motivation to make music with. So in my wildest dreams, I was hoping to hear some amazing new stuff from a supergroup. My worst nightmare would be that they would be trying to copy or outdo Judas Priest somehow. And it's kind of like, I don't know, you lose a girlfriend and then you find another one that has the same hair, and you go on social media and you're trying to show off that you're happier with the new one, but in the end you're actually sad that you don't have the old one, you know? So the reality of this album, kind of, I think the title sort of hinted it, The Sinner Rides Again. So that's kind of sin after sin from 1977, Judas Priest. You know, there's already a hint there. You know, there is a strong reference to them. The first song, Sons of the Sentinel, that's the Sentinel from Defenders of the Faith from 1984, I think it was, something like that. So, you know, like, yeah, there's a lot of hints out there that you can see that, you know, this is Judas Priest without Judas in it somehow. And on the other hand, of course, this is K.K. Downing, and this is the stuff that he's been writing about in the past. These are the topics. It's sins, demons, graves, souls, and glory, and it's all on this album for sure, and plenty of it. The highlight songs for me, after giving the album a few spins, are the first song, Sons of the Sentinel. It has kind of a cool chorus and a really, really great drive somehow, and the outro chorus is then a straight out reference to Defenders of the Faith, because it says we are the sons, defenders from hell. We are the sons of Sentinel, defenders, defenders, defenders. So it's there, you know. Another song that I like is I think it was a single. It's called One More Shot at Glory, and that has a really kind of cool bass intro, and then gets into like a really heavy chugging riff, and the vocals are really, really dark there in the beginning, and then it changes course after like 2 minutes and goes into this kind of galloping with the guitar solo on top of it. And that's, I like those two songs very much. And then the third song that I kind of like, but I feel it's missing a little bit, or it could have become better. And that's a song called Keeper of the Graves, and it has a very kind of slow starting build up, and it reminds me a little bit of Fear of the Dark with Iron Maiden, not in terms of the song or something, but more the mood that, you know, there's this build-up that then can become something great. And that it has some kind of choir singing in it, and then it goes into like a nice chorus. But I feel that they could have done better with that song. They could have milked it a little bit more and got more of an anthem out of it, where people would kind of sing along like they do on Fear of the Dark. And then, yeah, they just kind of cut it short. The good parts are cut too short. I mean, good song, but could have been greater. The rest of the songs don't really catch me. I mean, there are songs like, there is this song called Hymn Number 60 or Hymn 66, which is basically for me like Dissident Aggressor by Judas Priest just repacked somehow. And there are some elements like that where I feel that it's almost like recycling or putting some old stuff in new clothes. The last song, Wash Away Your Sins, that's where I feel like, for example, on the vocal part, it's too pretentious. It's trying too hard somehow. And there are also elements of that with the vocals on this album where I feel, because he doesn't need to pretend. He's a great singer, but they're bringing in too much, you know. And this sort of is how I feel about this album. It's very well played, has great sound, amazing mix, great singer, great guitars, but there's just nothing that kind of glues me on it, you know, nothing that sticks somehow. And yeah, I said too much singing sometimes. It reminds me sometimes of kind of primetime Accept, where Udo was kind of in there, and that's not what I wanted somehow, you know, like I couldn't get Udo's vocals. I guess that's why I'm not a singer. And I feel that in this case, the kind of the chip on their shoulder towards Judas Priest got the better of them somehow. They're trying to out-priest Priest instead of kind of stepping out of the shadow of their past. Maybe I was unrealistic. I mean, all the hints were there, the name of the band, the album title, the song titles. I mean, it's all there, and the writing was on the wall. What did I expect? Was I expecting K.K. Downing to make something different than what he's been doing for the last 50 years? I mean, that's kind of like expecting a cow to bark or something like that. So my verdict, guys, the pros of this album is that it's amazing musicianship. I don't know if that's a right word to say, musicianship, yeah. Great singer, great guitar player. The sound is perfect, good mix, and very good clarity on all the songs, you know, like the balance between the instruments and all that. The cons, it's not very original. I mean, I feel like they missed an opportunity to kind of evolve and, as I said, step out of the shadow and bring something fresh to the table. They could have milked some of the parts of the album a little bit more and turned them into something greater. So the arrangements are sometimes, for me, not great. And yeah, the vocals, it's sometimes too much and it becomes pretentious somehow. So I'm actually gonna give this album 6 out of 10. It's not a bad album, but it just nothing that sticks somehow. And I feel that the legacy of Judas Priest still hangs over those guys, especially maybe KK, I don't know, because he's the more vocal one about it. And this album might have been amazing in the 90s, I'm pretty sure about that, but it's not bringing anything new now in 2023. I, however, hope they will tour this album because I would love to see this band live. And don't get me wrong, guys, I love this band and the project, but I just don't think that this album necessarily is as good as they could have done. What do you guys think? I'm curious if you heard the album or you're gonna listen to it, what you will think about it. Tell me all about that. Like, share, and comment on this video. See you guys around. Goodbye.